Yeah, so I'm Simon Dixon, co-founder of Kwangu Kwako Limited, along with my co-founders Winnie Gatow and Simon Mara. So as you probably know, most people on this, there's a huge housing problem in Kenya. Is no different to some of the other African countries. In Kenya, there's 10 million people with living in informal structures in Kenya, and this is some of the houses that we see. The mud houses, mabati houses, and this particular one, and the tall one in the middle, was particularly scary because it's 3 stories high, and you can see the cabling that's going into it. So the risk of fire is fairly dramatic. And fire is one of the things that really got me certainly on this journey. I used to work for an organisation called Saniji that some of you will be aware of, working in the sanitation industry in Mukuru informal settlement. And the picture in the centre there is a fire that happened while I was in Mukuru, and there's about 100 houses burned down, and you can see in the middle there's 2 structures still standing, and they're 2 toilets. And I stood there and wondered, why are the toilets better than the houses? And that's how we started on this journey. I come from a construction and property background, so obviously seeing an image like that just was very striking for me. And then one of the things that by developing the houses and using precast concrete panels, you can see by the image on the right, one of the key factors is not only do we help to contain fires when they happen in the house, but we also act as a fire break to help prevent the spread of fires. So this is one of our projects we finished early last year, which is some bed sitters in a place called Kitengela. Our houses are weather resistant, fire resistant, obviously very, very secure. We can build the upstructure in about 2 days, and obviously they're long lasting. We did a survey where we asked the landlords what they thought their maintenance cost would reduce by, and they were saying there was 50%. So their perception is there's a huge saving from the traditional structures for our product. So this is how we do it. We manufacture in Nairobi, and we use a local labour. We're quite close to the Mukuru informal settlement, so we get people from there. So a couple of the guys that I knew when I was in my Saniji days, they came across with us and helped set up the process, and then I'll lead the manufacturing. Another thing that we did when we started, one key thing for me was that everything we used, all the molds, everything we made had to come from Kenya. I didn't want to be messing about with imports through Mombasa and anything like that, because just the delays and the added cost for that. And the nature of what we do, we needed to keep it very, very simple. And obviously some of the areas we access, we had to keep the panels quite small because you can't always get vehicles and cranes in. So that was the background behind how we factored in the design. The other thing is it also had to be buildable by low-skilled workers. So we take one supervisor into the community, and then we bring in local casuals and we train the local workers. As I say, we can build an installation, a house, an upstructure of a house in about 2 days. And the good thing is, as we build each house, we get more inquiries for the next house. So most of the times when we get local crews and we start to get some skill train them, they can then come from one project to the next one, which is great to see. And it's good to see the casuals develop as they move from one site to another. The houses, because of the nature of the areas we build, obviously we had to allow it to be, some of the sites are obviously varied sizes, so we have the modular design allows us to make fit into just about any shape. We have had one incubator where we literally had ½ an inch at each side of the site to get it in, and we managed to make that one work. So here's a few others. We completed 70 houses across 7 communities around the Nairobi area. The bed sitters on the left, obviously there's some single rooms on the right. That was some rental rooms to provide, the top right was rental rooms to provide a second income for a children's home. So they were less reliant on external funding. The middle one is a family that had a 10-foot by 10-foot house. A family of 5 were living in a metal shack on a farm, looking after a farm for somebody we know. And he decided he wanted to give them a better house. So we built 3 12 by 12 rooms in that house, so a significant increase in their house size. And it meant the parents and the children could have a separate room and a bit more dignity. And the good thing about that one, we pushed that one forward and we managed to move them into the new house on Christmas Eve. So that was a great story to have. And the guy on the right there is Boaz. He's a prime example of one of the people that came to us in Kwangu. He was a very low-skilled casual worker. and we've now worked on, I think, 5 schemes with us, including a school, and he's now moving into becoming a foreman. So he's developed through the basic skills around the construction, and then we recognise some potential leadership skills in him. So we helped to slowly gave him a little bit more responsibility, and slowly gave him some teams to look after. And he's hopefully, as we grow, we're going to hopefully bring him in as a full-time employee, as a foreman on our sites. So the great stories, we've got a number of those stories of people coming through, and that's one of the great advantages of what we do. A recent development in 2019 was we got approached by a donor who was looking to improve a school. This is the original school that we met when we went to have a look at the site. And in each of these classrooms, there was between 40 and 60 kids were being taught. A very, very cramped environment, and it's a very sloping site as well, so it was difficult but very compressed. There's about 400 children in this school, and we had to keep the school operating while we were building, so we had to do it across 4 phases. So it was a real challenging job. We were lucky we had a church next door, so we could move 2 classrooms at a time into the church, and then we refurbished that classroom, and then we moved the kids around. And this is the classrooms that they now have. You can see hopefully from the photograph, one thing that was really important was ventilation, because the original metal sheet houses were very, very hot, and it meant, particularly in the afternoon, the kids were falling asleep, and it got pretty unpleasant. So there's ventilation, there's a gap in the roof, above all the doors and windows there's ventilation, and it's significantly cooler and really helps the kids with their concentration as we get through the day. And one of the we did some interviews with the staff and the children as we completed that project, and one of the striking comments that we got from them, the kids said, when we asked the kids what difference these classrooms made, one of them said the classrooms no longer hurt us. And when we asked what happened, it was basically the metal sheet is so ragged that there's shards of the metal cuts the kids, and there's nails sticking out and things like that. So thankfully now, because we've done our classrooms, that doesn't happen, and the kids can go to school without getting injured from the classrooms. We've just recently completed another project in Kwangu, and this is in the last 12 months in particular, we've been asked to have more, just about every project we get asked for has in-house toilets as well. So that's a great development. The first year or two, we're just doing single rooms. The last year or two, we've moved to what is now 100% internal toilets and showers. So the bottom left is our first 1-bedroom houses that we've done. So that's 2 rooms with a kitchen and a shower, and the top right is obviously the houses that were there before. So again, you can see a significant improvement. So this development had a mix of 1-bedrooms, bed-sitters, and shops. So there's employment on the site as well. That was completed just at the end of October. So people often ask us, how strong are our panels? Because the panels, you probably have noticed, they're only 2 inches thick, and they can be lifted by 2 guys. And that was again part of the key design criteria to make sure everything could be manually handled. I wasn't expecting this. The test on the right was the first. Me stood on the panels was the first test we did. We laid a panel horizontally, and we sat panels slowly on top of them. And even with me stood on top, it didn't break. We kept piling them up, and we got it up to about 880 kilograms. That is the weakest side of the panel. It's not designed really to take that side load. It's designed to take a top load. But even at 880 kilograms, the panel didn't break. It cracked slightly, but didn't break. So because it's got mesh reinforcement inside, so that proved the strength. We thought that was good enough, but then the picture on the bottom left is what was our show house near where the manufacturing and warehouse facility that we have. And one of our neighbours kindly reversed his lorry into our show house, and you can see the size of the lorry on the right. And you imagine that reversing in the dark. When he hits the house, he's not going to notice it straight away, so he's going to keep going a foot or 2 into the house. So the picture in the middle is after a 10-ton truck has hit the house. And while we had to do some work on it to repair it, you can imagine if somebody was living in that house, they would have actually been pretty disturbed, but they would have been perfectly safe, which is good. If that had been a brick or a stone house, the bricks and stones would have fallen through onto somebody who was sleeping on the other side. So it was a great test, slightly unexpected test, but we were slightly annoyed about when we first heard about it, but in reality, it's an extremely good test and demonstration of the strength of our product. So these are the various configurations. The top left was our early product. It was single rooms and with outside toilets, but increasingly now, as I said, we tend to be doing bed sitters and one beds. Following on from the conversation earlier from I think it was Kareem, our houses are $150 or less, so we're in a similar price band. So we recognise equally that per square metre that is. We recognise equally that is around the price band that's needed to work in these low income elements. There you go. And yeah, so we work with basically micro landlords in the community. We help them provide improved housing for tenant families, and then the rental income then helps the micro landlords and the cash circulates around. We often get asked about the rental versus ownership question. Obviously, a lot of the push within affordable housing is for home ownership. The one thing we discovered very early on in the journey was about 90% of the households in Nairobi are rented. And across Kenya, the urban centres across Kenya as a whole is still as high as 78%. And in the slums, informal settlements, it's still extremely high. So for us to make an impact in the low-income areas and the informal settlements, we needed to find a solution that gave the landlords a reason to invest. Without that, you were not really going to make an impact. And that's one of the reasons I feel that there hasn't been much impact in that area over the years, despite many attempts. So we got to know that. I mean, luckily through my work with Synergy, we'd worked with some of the landlords anyway, so I had some knowledge of that. And we worked with the landlords and we talked to them about what were their pain points. Why wouldn't they provide better housing? And most of the time it was because it's not available, and the only thing available was stone houses that were too expensive. So the only choice they felt they had was the metal sheet houses. And also because of the speed of build of the metal sheet houses and the access problems, the metal sheet was, in their opinion, the only option. So obviously, by designing the way we did, we managed to help them have that solution. And the other thing, the pain points, when we did a survey, the pain points for the landlord was more around the occupancy levels and also rent collection. And the good thing about having the better houses in the area is that people want to live in them and people don't want to lose them. So they're more likely to pay their rent, they're more likely to be occupied. The void rates are particularly low for our houses. And from the tenant side, the tenants, in particular in the urban areas, as COVID has demonstrated most recently, with changing employment and insecurity of employment, people need to be able to move around to different locations as just their jobs change. So rental is often the best and only solution for most people as they come into the communities. So the ability to be able to move from one side of town to the other and have shorter transport time is a massive boost. The other question we often get asked is around the landlords. Are we not just promoting the evil slumlords? The evil slumlord character type is something we've actually not encountered yet, to be honest. The survey we did again with using the lean data organization now called 60 Decibels, they helped us dig deep into this. And what we found was from our contact database of about 200 landlords and structure owners, 60% of them still lived in the community, and a lot of them still originated from the communities in which we worked, and they had family and friends who were from that community. So they're extremely passionate about the community itself, but particularly about improving it and seeing it grow and seeing it develop. So that really helps. And the other slightly surprising thing, because culturally land often goes to the men in Kenya, but 53% of the landlords that we were talking to were women. And that was great. And you can see the two ladies in the picture, Monica and Jane there, they were one of the early, we built some houses for both of those two in 2018. And they're very happy with them. They've had great occupancy as well. And the other thing, obviously, looking at Jane and Monica there, the rental income from their houses is their primary income. The other things they used to sell was water at 5 shillings a jerry can and second-hand clothing. So their income was, significantly improved by using the Kwangu Kwako houses. The other question we get asked, obviously our houses are a significant improvement, is does the rent go up? And we had an interesting comment from somebody in the early days who's a single mother who lived in Mabati house near our show house, and we invited people in and we asked them what they thought about the houses, and we asked this lady what the rent would be, and she said it would be about 50% more than where she was now. And we said that, but that's more expensive. And she looked at me in the eye and just slightly surprised and said, of course it's more expensive, it's better. And what people are doing as well is they're moving from the metal sheet houses into our house, but they're valuing the change and they're valuing the savings they make in other areas. So they can invest in things like solar, they can invest in other energy saving interventions, because they're not going to get them stolen. If you live in a house that's just got 2 nails holding the wall on, you're not going to invest in things longer term, and you're not going to invest in life improving interventions. Whereas once you move into a Kwangu Kwako house, you know you can't, and it's very, very safe. And as a lady said to us, she can now go up country and do work for 2 weeks, coming back and knowing that all her possessions is safe. So we do. So working in the community, particularly one like Kwangu, where we've now had a few projects, we've got a school, we really build up the customer confidence. People know we deliver, they know we deliver on the price, they know we deliver on the time. People are very cynical. There's lots of people come around with lots of promises. So you've got to do it in any new community. It takes you a year or so to actually build that confidence and show that trust. Kwangu and Athi River are our 2 most mature areas, and we're really seeing the benefit of that now. As with referrals and confidence, we've just yesterday we just secured a project which is our largest to date at $70,000 single project, and that's basically it's going to be 25 houses, and it's with a customer who's got adjacent property as well, and he's now looking at 5 phases over time. This first phase is the $70,000, just 1 of 5, so it's great, and he shows the benefit. And he said he'd seen his building somewhere else, he'd spoken to the other landlords, he'd heard how we work. And I think that's a big thing around. A lot of the previous speakers have been saying that once you build a trust, it really helps to develop the market. So as I said, we started really selling in 2018. It was a tough slog at first as we started to build the confidence. 2019, we started to see a little bit of a shift. But we really made a difference. Despite COVID in 2020, we've more than doubled revenue. And imagine we had probably about 5-6 months of very difficult time through this market, as I'm sure everybody has. So double revenue in that environment shows we are moving forward, and we're making a big difference. And our financial year ends at the end of September, so we're just starting our next financial year, and already we've secured $70,000. So this year looks like we're going to more than double the revenue again, which is great. So the strategy, as I think I've alluded to, is housing and education and other community buildings. You can't just do housing, and our product is easily adaptable to do all sorts of buildings. So by having a presence with shops, with community structures, with churches, with classrooms, it helps to build the confidence for the housing as well, and we can grow that. So we're working on developing both sales channels. And in order to grow, our product is very much, we call it, we can flat pack. So the upstructure in particular, we manufacture the doors and windows, we pre-cut the sheeting, we can pre-cut the metals for the roof. So essentially, it can be a house in a box. So while we still build them ourselves at the moment, we're moving towards, over the next couple of years, having licensed or franchise contractors who are building for us. And that will allow us to focus on the manufacturing and the quality control, similar to what the Earth Enable lady mentioned earlier. So we'll go in and do the quality control, and we'll check once we've given the guys a chance to build a couple of projects with us, doing some quite detailed support and training. We'll release them and license them to build for us. And through that, we'll be able to scale much, much quicker and have a much greater impact. We're currently raising money. We've secured $300,000 already towards the 575, and that allows us to get to a scale where we can do a full equity raise, but hopefully towards the end of next year. A big thing that we're looking for now is R&D. We're developing the original product, but we've got some great ideas coming through. We're looking for a 2-story solution. We only do single story at the moment. People are looking to obviously get the density up on their houses. So a 2-story solution, there's many solutions around, but the price point we have to hit at $150 or less is very, very hard at that price point in Kenya, and certainly in Kenya and Nairobi particularly. So we've got some good engineers working on it. Betty, our ace engineer, great Kenyan engineer, she's working with us, and she's partnering with Engineers Without Borders Canada. We've got some great support coming from over there, some virtual engineering support. And as we build the partnerships and the processes, obviously that will improve as well. So the impact at the moment, we've got, by 2023, over the next 3 years, we're looking to do 4,500 houses, put 5,000 children in safer classrooms. I actually think that's quite conservative. The interest since we built that first school and we started promoting it is coming strong, and particularly now, the new normal's been adapted to, so people are beginning to look to invest. Donors are talking to us about classrooms. We had an inquiry, Winnie had an inquiry yesterday from another donor who's looking to improve a school. So I actually think schools could grow a lot quicker than we're projecting at the moment, which is great. The internal supply jobs, obviously, housing is a great one in the wider supply chain for boosting the local economies and boosting the local employment. We use local people, we use local hardware stores and everything else. So we're very much working with the circular economy. Housing and COVID, obviously, with people spend a lot more time in their houses, in the house, and the environment of the house is becoming increasingly important. COVID was very interesting. At first, we had a massive impact. Obviously, our investment raise was delayed. There was initial impact on sales while people took stock and the restrictions were imposed. We couldn't move outside Nairobi and a few other things like that. Obviously, cash flow was particularly challenged and the team were very uncertain about what was going on. What was really surprising was then after about the first 6 to 8 weeks of COVID in Kenya, we started towards the end of March. We started to get increased sales inquiries, and we probably, to be honest, we were getting more inquiries than we would under normal circumstances, which was very, very surprising. But what I think that came from was people had a little bit more time on their hands at home to think about what they were doing. But obviously their normal income streams were probably getting a bit vulnerable, so they were looking at more passive income streams and how they can leverage some of the assets that they had and the land they had. So we've actually, as you could see from the cash flow that we showed earlier, we actually had a much better year than we had previously, and approaching the level of revenue that we'd expected anyway, which is really good. And the good thing now as well is investor confidence is slowly returning, so we're re-energizing the capital raise there. And we've just had a good meeting yesterday with an investor, so hopefully some good things will come from that. Just moving on. Yeah, so the team, we have a very small team. As you can see, that's the core team. There's Ken, the manufacturing there, me, Betty, our race engineer on the left, Winnie and Luke in the middle there, he's our electrician, and we've got obviously Simon and Winnie on the right there. We're very proudly Kenyan. Obviously, many social enterprises have quite a mix of expats coming in, but we've tried again from the beginning to make it a Kenyan business. I've been in Kenya for 9 years and committed to Kenya. And while I'm not a Kenyan citizen yet, but the rest of the team are all Kenyan, and we're trying to keep that as a policy as much as possible. And it's good to see that obviously a gender balance in a construction company, that we're managing to keep that there too. And Winnie and Betty are working hard with us to try and help as we grow the business to make sure we can attract the female talent as well. There's plenty of that around. With the board as well, we're trying to keep that Kenyan as well as much as possible. Joris de Vries is our Dutch investor. He's been with us since 2016. HRSV have been hugely supportive of us as we've been going through. And then Rojito, he's a great finance entrepreneur, and he also does football recruitment for the Premier League. So he's got some very wide and varied background and some great stories, particularly from the football side. So he's a real character. And Jack Macau from Slum Dwellers International. He was great. Jack's been great in helping us, work with Slum Dwellers International. And I remember the first time he came to see our show house. He sat down in the show house and we looked around and he just paused for a moment. And then he just smiled and said, "Finally, I'm home." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Somebody's finally building the type of houses we need." And it was that feedback and subsequent discussions we had with Jack, which obviously attracted us to have Jack on the board, and his community experience, his connections in the community is significant, and his ability to link us to other people. Another great story from Jack as well was he introduced us to a project in Nakuru in the middle of Kenya, and it was a community group, and they were building houses on some land, and we were looking at whether we could use our structures to help them with that. And in the end, they didn't go forward with it. They had some local people they were working with, and that was fine. But more recently, I don't know if you know, the lakes around Kenya, the water level has risen significantly. And all those houses that were built there have now been flooded. And one thing Jack said, if we built with our product, we could dismantle it and we could have moved to another location. Houses are also designed to be dismantled and moved. So if the use changes or people decide to move, the upstructure can just be basically put on a truck and moved. And we've tested that. We have a demo house for a conference that we take to different conferences, and we've built that and demolished and sort of dismantled it with it 4 times using the same components and rebuild it, and it's just as good the next time. So that's a really good, useful thing, especially as land uses change, and particularly if there's some uncertainty about the land as well. It helps people protect their investments. So that's the end of my presentation. I've got happy to answer some questions. I'll just go off screen share so I can see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, indeed, there are. Thank you so much for your presentation, Simon. There are indeed a few questions. I'm sorry, I think I'm hearing an echo. I don't know if the logistical team can help on that. So thank you so much, Simon. Very, very interesting and fascinating product that you have developed. Congratulations. There's a lot of requests for engagement, for further engagement from participants who want to discuss more in detail with you on one-on-one. So I encourage you to look after in the comment and send them a direct message. I'm sure they're already sending you direct messages. So thank you so much for your time and to engage with them. A few questions. Kesia is asking, how are the unit financed from the end user perspective? Are you working with local lenders? You're on mute, sorry.
Okay, yes, no, financing varies quite a lot. We've got a lot of people who are paying cash or have their own financing. But we're probably about 30 to 40%. They need support with financing. So, as I say, many can get their own finance, but like the 2 ladies we showed you there, Monica and Jane, we raised a small fund that we partnered with Masoni, and Masoni provided the credit services, and then we managed to get some discounted finance into them. So the higher the risk the borrower, the more support is needed. And we're just working now, part of that investment raise that we showed earlier is to basically raise 50% of that is towards, again, a loan finance fund. And so we'll do that through creating a fund, and then we'll use a finance provider to provide mortgages. The first ones were about 3 years, and the period isn't really long enough. So now we're talking to a few other banks to try and get to between 5 and 8 years is what you need. So we're trying to get it so the rental income is about so the loan repayments are no more than 2/3 of the rental income, just to allow for voids and make sure it's sustainable for the borrowers. And that's taken the lessons from that first experiment.
Excellent, thank you. Another question: what is the lifespan of these units, and are they considered permanent structures that can be put on title development? Still on mute. Sorry. I think they're
just pressed another button. Sorry, I just stopped my screen share. Yeah, no, they can last. They're made of concrete. So I mean, we've got one that's 5 years. The oldest we have so far is 5 years, but it's concrete, reinforced concrete. There's the metal roof structure, the metal sheet roofing, and metal doors and windows. So the concrete itself will last for 20 years plus. The metal work, as long as people maintain it and paint it, that should last pretty well. The metal sheeting. We upstage the quality. Most people use 32 gauge. We use a thicker one to make it last longer. Mm-hmm. So that's probably going to last between 10 and 15 years, and then it might need some maintenance. It depends on the area. A lot of the informal settlements are in areas of industry, so there can be some corrosion. But the main structure, especially with normal maintenance for housing, should last well past 20 years or so. We haven't tested it yet. I look forward to seeing it go that far, but yeah, 5 years is the longest we have so far.
And thank you, Simon. The final question from Zila: can you build larger spaces which still have structural integrity using this method? Sorry, you are back on mute.
Don't know why that's on. Yeah, the classroom, it was 45 feet by 15 feet. We can get to 7.2 meters wide. That's the widest we can go. And then we use like a frame every 4 meters, we put a goalpost frame. And so that can keep going as long as you want to go. So we've got many different uses. We've been taught, shops, obviously, training centres, schools, churches, anything that's, as long as it's not more than 7.2 at the moment, and our engineers are working on how we can get it even wider than that. So we have to have, as long as we have a column every 4 meters, we can make it work.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Simon. It was very informative and very interesting presentation. Like